So how long has it been since you looked at one of your blog posts from a mobile phone? Chances are that you spent all of your time on WordPress on either a laptop or desktop computer, and you haven't seen many of your recent blog posts from a mobile phone user's experience. But in a world where 50% of people coming to our websites are probably coming from a mobile phone, it's really important that we get our mobile phone users' user experience as good as possible. Recently, I looked at some of my blog posts from a mobile phone user experience, and I got a rude shock. I thought I was doing most of the best practices, but I had to go through and do a full mobile first content audit in order to improve my content. So in this video, I'll share with you 6 tips that I took away from my mobile first content audit. So the first tip is to make sure that you read blog posts on Pinterest like a Pinterest consumer as much as possible. The reason I recommend finding blog posts on Pinterest is because people who have got a strong Pinterest readership usually have done a very good job of optimizing for phone experience because all of their consumers are coming through their phone via the Pinterest app. The good news is you don't have to use your phone for this. If you're using the Google Chrome browser, you can just press F12 and then you can click on this button here, and this button will help you toggle to a mobile phone experience screen. Once you've toggled to the mobile phone experience screen, you can even select which type of mobile phone it will emulate. Once you've got Google Chrome emulating a mobile phone, you can scroll through just like a mobile phone user would and experience a few different blog posts from Pinterest from a mobile phone user's experience. I'd recommend taking notes on what worked well and what didn't work well, so when you go to do your own content audit, you know what to look out for. The next tip is to use large font size. This is the biggest and most important of all of the tips. You think that your font size looks good on a desktop computer, but chances are it's way too small for a mobile phone. So here's an example of one I got on Pinterest with size 16 font size. To me, it is way too small, even though size 16 is perfectly fine on a computer. Now let's increase it to 22 font size and see what happens. You can see here, it looks way nicer and easier to read for a mobile phone user experience. If we put them side by side, it is night and day. I would much prefer to use the one on the right-hand side. So to increase your own font size, simply go to your theme customization. I'm using Astra here in this screencast, and I'm increasing my font size to around about 22, which I think will look pretty good on a mobile phone screen. You can see that I'm adjusting both the text size and the heading size here. And then when I press publish, you'll be able to see a significant difference between my blog posts. So here's a blog post from nichesafari.com. On the left-hand side is size 16 font and the right-hand side is size 22 font. In my opinion, that makes a really big difference from a mobile phone user's experience. They'll be able to read the text without straining their eyes. Okay, so tip number 3 is to make sure that all of your images are on their own line. From a desktop user's experience, it's usually really nice to have an image embedded on the right-hand side of the first couple of paragraphs because it makes it easier to read. But unfortunately, when you go over to a mobile phone, it looks really bad. So you can see here, it looks terrible where it's essentially 1 or 2 letters per line for the mobile phone. So what I'm going to do is edit this post and simply click on the image and center the image like that. Now I am using the classic editor here, so it may be a little bit different for people who use Gutenberg, but it's the similar sort of idea. You just center the image on its own line. And now when you scroll down, it looks so much better for a mobile phone user's experience. Okay, tip number 4, a massive one, shorten those paragraphs. And I know that when I talk to most people about this, they say, yeah, I only do 2-line paragraphs because that's best for mobile user experience. And I say that as well. But then when I go and look at my articles, sometimes I realize that I am falling way short of what I think that I am doing. So it is really important that every time you publish a blog post, you do look at the paragraph length from a mobile phone user experience to make sure you're getting it right. One tip I have for you here is to use the new feature on WordPress where you can preview your article from a mobile phone user experience. Now, WordPress doesn't do the best job of emulating a user experience for mobile, so make sure you also take a look at it either on your mobile phone or use the Google Chrome emulator. They're much better at doing this than the WordPress mobile phone emulator. but it gives you a bit of an idea, and sometimes it does work pretty well. So once you've done that, just make sure that you're scrolling down and you're pressing enter wherever you see that there are paragraphs that are too long. Sometimes even a 2-sentence paragraph ends up looking way too long on a mobile phone, and you need to turn it into a 1-sentence paragraph. Okay, tip number 5 was one that I didn't expect to end up doing, but it was something that I noticed when I was looking through my blog post from a mobile phone. Is I would end up with big walls of text where, even though there are paragraphs in there, there does seem to be a need for some more things to catch the eye of the user. So you can either use hyperlinks to catch the eye of the person using it on a mobile phone, or bold text, or bullet points, or numbered headings, something like that, to make sure that you're drawing the user's eye so it doesn't look like this, where there's just nothing but text on the screen, nothing that adds a little bit of variety and to help the user continue to scroll down the page. So here's one example where I just add a hyperlink and a little bit of bold text, and the difference, I think, is pretty significant. Side by side, you can see here that one looks a lot more eye-catching than the other. Here's another example, again, just 2 paragraphs, there's nothing interesting in them. And then I added a couple of hyperlinks both to external sources and my own sources, bolded a line, made it its own line instead of being part of a different paragraph. And I think the difference is pretty significant for a mobile phone user's experience. Okay, number 6 is something that I personally think is really good, and that is to simply number your subheadings. Numbering headings helps users to continue scrolling, in my opinion. If I know that there are 7 tips for something, I want to scroll down and see all 7 of the tips. It gives me a little bit of a frame of reference for how far through the article I am, rather than just going from one subheading to another. So here's an article that I thought did quite well at it. As I scroll down, you can see that there are numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on. So I want to continue to scroll down to see what's tip number 7, what's tip number 8, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that sums up all of my mobile first user experience tips. Even if you think you're doing a really good job, I would strongly encourage you to have a look at some other people's stuff on Pinterest, and then look at your own stuff straight after that, and you will likely find that you are falling down in a few areas. Just spending half an hour looking over your blog post from a mobile phone user's experience will significantly improve your work going forward, and hopefully increase your time on page, and therefore the amount of money that you are making from display advertising.